kok belum tidur? Anissa, kenapa dikunci Anissa? Bu.
Rampas aman. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Huwal hayyul qayyum. La ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la naum.
At the beginning of the movie, we see a woman praying. A child behind her runs to the window and sees an angry crowd outside. He calls out to his mother, saying, "That's Miss Marni." The woman goes to the window to check and sees the crowd angrily dragging a woman away. The woman being taken looks up at the window as the crowd pushes her forward in a rage. The woman inside closes the curtain, looking visibly sad about something, and we see a man looking at her in anger. Then we see the crowd dragging the woman to a large tree. They make her sit in front of the tree. She shouts, "Give me back my child," and then begins cursing the villagers. "You will feel what I feel," and starts laughing maniacally. She spots a woman carrying a child, starts crying, and screams, "Give me back my baby!" Despite her pleas, a few villagers place a noose around her neck and hang her. She struggles for breath, but eventually dies. The scene then shifts to the present day, where we see Supri struggling to start his minibus. The woman sitting beside him asks why he didn't check the vehicle before picking them up, then notices that her phone has lost signal. Meanwhile, a child says he needs to pee and gets out of the bus, with the girl following him. After a while, Supri spots a jeep approaching and thanks God for the help. A man gets out of the jeep and asks if his vehicle has broken down again. Supri then tells the woman that the man with him is the headman of the village. The woman gets out and introduces herself as Rahayu, and the headman introduces himself as Badri. Driver mentions that Badri is the one whose house she is renting. Rahayu then introduces her children, Anissa and Aan. Badri, surprised, asks Rahayu, "When we spoke on call, didn't you say there were only 2 people?" Rahayu responds, "Aan should be with his father. But that's a long story." Badri then says, "I'll show you the house, and you can all come in my jeep." As they reach the house, Rahayu asks Badri, "Why don't you stay here anymore?" Badri replies that his wife is old now, and it's difficult for her to manage such a big house. Then they enters the house. Badri asks, "What made you decide to live in our village?" Rahayu replies, "My ex-husband used to live in this village. That's why we plan to shift here." Anissa begins exploring the house and notices a weird hanging on the door. She moves forward and enters a room where she spots a similar hanging on the window. Curious, she takes it down for a closer look. Suddenly, she hears a knock from behind and realizes it's coming from an almirah. As she approaches to investigate, she mischievously closes the almirah door, trapping her brother Aan inside. Suddenly, Rahayu enters and informs Anissa that Badri is leaving, asking her to come along and see him off. Anissa agrees, unlocking the almirah to let Aan out. Then Anissa is seen on a video call with her friend Pop. While they are talking, Anissa notices a hole in the ceiling. She moves closer to examine it, but ultimately decides to ignore it. Shortly after, she loses the signal and texts Pop, letting her know she'll call back later. Shortly after, we see Anissa praying. Once again, she hears a knocking sound coming from the almirah. Assuming it's Aan playing tricks on her again, she walks over to lock him inside like before. Just as she closes the door, Aan suddenly jumps onto the bed. Startled, Anissa freezes, realizing that the knocking sound wasn't coming from Aan. The scene then shifts to the dinner table, where Anissa encourages Aan to eat his dinner. Suddenly, he stands up, points toward a specific direction, and says, "Give it to them." Anissa, thinking he's just playing around, chuckles and asks, "Oh, is the machine hungry?" But when Aan looks in that direction, he starts screaming in fear and throws his plate to the floor, and he runs away. The next morning, we see Anissa heading to the market with Aan. Along the way, a group of local boys start teasing her, making comments about her clothes. Angered by their remarks, Anissa confronts the group, demanding the boy who made the comment to come forward. Furious, she begins yelling at him for his rude behavior. When the boy tries to touch her, she slaps him in anger. And just as one of them is about to strike her, A man appears from behind and saves her. The boys apologize to the man, and he releases them. Anissa thanks the man and introduces herself. He welcomes her in return. She then introduces her brother Aan and explains that they just moved to the area. The man, revealing his name as Tama, says he knows this because he is the son of the village headman, Badri. After the brief exchange, Anissa and Aan leave. Anissa then reaches a local shop and asks the shopkeeper for some fish. While the woman is packing it for her, Anissa notices the same strange hanging displayed nearby. The scene then shifts to Rahayu at home, burning a pile of similar hangings. Then we see Anissa on a video call with her friend Pop. Anissa shares that her parents are getting divorced, and her mother wants their dad to take care of Aan, but Aan doesn't want to be separated from her. As they're talking, Pop suddenly notices that Aan, who was behind Anissa, is no longer there. After a frantic search, she finds him playing with a strange woman, Irma, who is handing him the same peculiar hanging. Anissa rushes over to Aan and tells him to stay away from the women. She notices the odd hanging in Aan's hands and throws it away. As she takes Aan away, Irma watches her with a blank expression. As the sun sets, we see the shopkeeper calling out her kids to go home, as if she is fearing from something. She goes to them and takes them with her to go to home. Then we see Aan playing inside the house. Suddenly, he hears a knock, and someone says, "Peace be upon you." Cautiously, he approaches the door, peering out through the keyhole, and sees a woman standing outside. Suddenly, a loud knock echoes through the door. Out of fear, Aan slowly steps backward. Just then, Anissa places her hand on his shoulder, relieved, and hugs her tightly. But as he hugs her, Aan hears Anissa calling his name. When he looks back, he sees the real Anissa standing inside the house. Horrified, he runs back into the house. The scene transitions to Tama, who is deep in prayer in a dimly lit room. Suddenly, we see a woman stands by the door, crying. Suddenly, her sobs transform into eerie laughter. Tama turns his head to check, but finds no one outside. However, as he looks forward, she reappears in front of him. Tama ignores her and continues praying. After a while, the woman disappears once more. Then we see Anissa praying. Suddenly, she notices a baby wrapped in cloth, slowly descending from a hole. Just as she reaches out to touch it, the baby is quickly pulled back up. Then Anissa rushes out to look for her mother. She finds her in an unconscious state, sitting at a sewing machine. Anissa tries to wake her, but her mother starts muttering, "Father, stop! Fight him, mother." Anissa shakes her again, and suddenly Rahayu wakes up. Gently, Anissa helps her mother and carefully guides her back to her room. The next morning, Anissa is awakened by Rahayu shouting at Aan. She rushes outside and sees Rahayu angrily gathering her work printouts, which Aan has destroyed. Aan, panicking and shouting in fear, is comforted by Anissa. Frustrated, Rahayu tells Anissa that she has to reprint the designs since they need to be sent to the client that afternoon. Anissa suggests going to the city to buy more ink with Tama. Rahayu agrees. Then we see the local boys messing around and troubling Irma. Anissa, seeing this, goes to rescue her and asks the boys to give her umbrella back. Boys leaves and she gives her back her umbrella. Irma gives her a weird smile and runs behind her. As Anissa searches for Tama's house, she gets lost in the jungle and we see Irma following her. Eventually, Anissa reaches the large tree where Marni was hanged. Suddenly, she hears a whisper calling her name. She approaches the tree and hears the whisper again. Just as she's about to touch the tree, Irma shouts, stopping her. Anissa, startled, confronts Irma for following her and tells her to stay away. Irma then pulls out Anissa's wallet. As Anissa takes the wallet, she impulsively strikes the woman with a wooden stick. At that moment, Tama arrives and stops Anissa. Crying, Irma hands Anissa the hanging. Tama takes it from her and politely asks her again to go home. As she leaves, Tama turns to Anissa and asks why she's there. Anissa explains that she got lost while searching for his house. He tells her his home is nearby and suggests they go together, as he's headed there himself. The scene then shifts to Rahayu dusting a piece of furniture. Suddenly, she realizes it's a storage box and opens it, discovering some old photographs. She takes a moment to look at them. Meanwhile, we see Aan tampering with Rahayu's laptop. The scene then cuts to Anissa at Tama's house. Tama's mother tells her that Irma is a good girl. She explains that when Irma was a child, a Wewe Gombel kidnapped her. Tama adds, "A city girl like you must not believe in these things." Anissa replies, Yes, I don't believe in this, but my best friend says that she can see the unseen. Back at home, Rahayu notices that Aan has messed up her laptop, and she yells at him in frustration. Later, as Tama drops Anissa off at home, she sees Aan sitting outside and asks why. Rahayu appears and explains that he's not allowed inside because he ruined her laptop, putting her job at risk. Anissa hands the ink over to her mother. As Rahayu leaves, Anissa pulls out a sketchbook for Aan and gives him some crayons to cheer him up. Just then, her mother calls her inside. As she rushes into the house, we see a mysterious woman looking at Aan. Later, as Rahayu is printing her designs, there's a knock on the door. Rahayu tells Anissa that it must be the courier. Anissa opens the door and asks the courier guy to wait for a moment. Just then, she realizes Aan is no longer sitting where he was. Panic sets in, and she asks the courier guy if he saw a little boy sitting nearby. He denies having seen anyone. Terrified, Anissa rushes into the village, desperately searching for Aan. She calls out his name, her voice breaking as she begins to cry. Just then, we see a pochong in background, unseen by Anissa. Suddenly, Irma appears in front of her. Startled, Anissa asks Irma if she has seen Aan. Irma starts crying instead of responding. Anissa shouts the question again, but Irma, still crying, runs away from the scene. The scene then shifts to Badri's house, where Badri asks Anissa, "Have you looked around the house?" Anissa replies, "Yes, I've searched around the village." Then, she asks if Aan's disappearance could have anything to do with the Wewe Gombel myth. Badri begins to tell them a dark story. It all started with an event that happened 47 years ago. In a flashback, we see Badri with his mother and a woman named Marni, who was a local Jamu drink seller. Badri's mother asks him to thank Marni. Marni kindly welcomes him, but grows uncomfortable when she notices a man standing in the doorway, smiling at her. As Marni leaves, a group of men begin to harass her with catcalls and lewd comments. They follow her into the jungle, and their harassment escalates. One of the men, Jantra, gets closer to her and whispers, "Serve me as you served my father," before attempting to grope her. In anger, Marni slaps him and hits him on the head with a bottle. Enraged, the group grabs her. They force her to stand in front of a tree as Jantra, seething with anger, slaps her hard across the face. The men then pin her to the ground. Jantra brutally beats her, and Marni spits on his face. In a horrifying act of revenge, Jantra rapes her. After Jantra, the other men take turns raping her as well, leaving her battered and broken in the jungle. Marni gets up and starts crying, but after a while, she begins laughing hysterically. Later, we see her pregnant, wandering aimlessly through the village like someone out of her senses, with children teasing her, calling her crazy Marni. Eventually, she goes into labor and delivers her baby all alone. Summoning all her strength, she cuts the umbilical cord with her teeth and tenderly kisses her newborn. Then, we see her entering in one of the men's house who had assaulted her. In a fit of rage, she brutally kills him with a knife. The next morning, when Jantra arrives, he is horrified to find the severed head of his friend, while the rest of his body hangs at a distance. Meanwhile, we see Marni wandering through the village with her baby, singing a lullaby. Suddenly, Badri's mother approaches her. Marni steps away. Badri's mother gently says, "Let us take care of your baby." Marni retorts, "Your family already destroyed my life. Don't take my baby." Confused, Badri's mother asks, "What do you mean? Tell me." Marni then reveals the horrifying truth that her son and husband had raped her. Shocked, Badri's mother exclaims, "You're lying. There's no way my son and husband could do such an immoral act." Just then, a group of men arrives, shouting, "She's a murderer!" Marni pulls out a knife, warning them to stay away. Despite her warnings, the villagers overpower her and snatch her baby away. Desperate and enraged, Marni fights back. After a fierce struggle, a few men manage to restrain her once more. Marni cries out for her child. From the crowd, a woman shouts, "She's a whore who sleeps around with the husbands in the village." The woman then rushes toward Marni, ripping off her clothes in a humiliating act. The villagers, with no mercy, drag Marni away. Badri then narrates, "My mother felt deeply responsible for what our family had done to Marni. She sincerely cared for Marni's child, but the baby was weak, and after a week, it passed away." Anissa, horrified, asks, So, Marni became Wewe Gombel? Badri solemnly replies, yes. After Marni's death, rumors spread through the village that her spirit returns to take children who are neglected or abandoned by their parents. Anissa asks hesitantly, but the children come back, right? Badri says, not all of them. And even if they do, many return with mental disorders. Anissa asks, like Irma? Badri nods. Irma is lucky to still be alive. She was the last child taken by Marni. Anissa shouts and accuses Rahayu of punishing and abandoning Aan. Badri intervenes, saying, I know a way to bring Aan back. He continues, I'll notify all the villagers to search for Aan by making loud noises with trays, pans, or anything that will make an ear-splitting sound. As they reach the jungle, Anissa spots a figure staring at her. As she watches carefully, she realizes it's Marni, smiling at her. Suddenly, she begins to feel dizzy and collapses. When she regains consciousness, she sees Marni sitting in front of her with Aan in her lap, surrounded by other children sitting nearby. The scene shifts to the hospital, where Rahayu tells Anissa that she has been unconscious for the last 3 days, and there is still no sign of Aan. Days and months pass, but Aan is still missing. One night, in a fit of anger, Anissa goes to the tree and challenges Marni to come out. When nothing happens, she sits down and pleads with Marni to return Aan, promising that she will do anything in return. Just then, Marni begins to crawl down from the tree. At that moment, Talma arrives and finds Anissa sitting beneath the tree. When he looks up, he sees Marni crawling down. He starts praying. As he continues praying, both Marni and Anissa scream, and Marni vanishes. As Marni disappears, Anissa collapses. Then we see Rahayu praying and asking God for forgiveness. Suddenly, she hears Aan's voice calling. She rushes to the door, opens it. She quickly runs to him, hugging him tightly and crying in relief. Meanwhile, Tama is reciting a prayer over Aan. Rahayu thanks Badri and Tama for their help. As they leave, Anissa arrives and is overjoyed to see Aan. She rushes to him and the three of them embrace in a heartfelt hug. Later, Rahayu is preparing some protective hangings and calls Anissa over to help her hang them. Curious, Anissa asks, why these? Rahayu replies, just to be safe. As Anissa picks up one of the hangings, her hand suddenly burns. Anissa looks down and notices burn marks forming on her fingers. Then we see Anissa is at the store, asking for specific herbs. Curious, shopkeeper asks, why do you need so many herbs? Anissa replies to make jamu for my Aan, and smiles strangely. On her way back home, she becomes visibly irritated by the sound of a prayer echoing in the distance. She covers her ears, trying to block it out. Tama, observing from a distance, notices her unusual behavior. Scene then shifts to Rahayu trying to feed Aan. Anissa approaches and says, Mom, let me feed Aan. Rahayu insists gently. It's been such a long time since I last fed him. Suddenly, Anissa snaps, Mom, let me feed him! Her outburst startles Aan. Rahayu immediately tries to calm him. Anissa then asks, do you want me or Mom to feed you? And directs a strange smile at Rahayu. Later that night, Rahayu notices Aan and Anissa playing together. Suddenly, they stop playing, and Anissa turns to Rahayu with an eerie smile. Just then, the door slams shut on its own. Moments later, Anissa appears from the other side and asks, what happened? Just then, the door opens, and Rahayu finds Aan sleeping peacefully. Confused, Rahayu says, nothing. Anissa then walks away, leaving Rahayu unsettled. Next morning, we see Anissa's friend, Pop, arrives at Anissa's home. Anissa lights up with joy at seeing her and warmly welcomes her inside. A little later, Pop is playing with Aan, using a small robot camera to entertain him. Suddenly, Anissa appears, her face clouded with jealousy. She snatches the remote and grabs Aan, saying curtly, play with me, and takes him away. Later, while Pop is resting in Anissa's room, she notices something slowly descending from a hole in the ceiling. She says, don't disturb me, and covers her face with a pillow. Suddenly, an entity appears. The entity grows more aggressive, wrapping its hands around her neck to strangle her. Desperate, Pop reaches toward her bag, fumbling to grab something inside. Finally, she pulls out an object and presses it against the entity's forehead. The entity vanishes. Shaken, Pop catches her breath. Then she sees a figure in mirror and thanks him. The next day, while Pop and Anissa are talking outdoors, Aan suddenly starts shouting, "I want to be with mommy!" Anissa tries to calm him down, but he slaps her. Both Anissa and Pop are shocked by his behavior. As they return home, Irma stops Pop and hands her one of the protective hangings, saying, "Keep this." Pointing toward the house, she warns, "Danger." As Irma sits, Pop touches Irma. Suddenly, she's overwhelmed by a vision. The vision shifts to Marni leading a group of children away, but Irma breaks free and escapes. Later, Pop notices Aan talking to someone. She realizes with horror that Aan is talking to something unseen, addressing it as mother. Just then, Anissa arrives. She goes inside and asks Aan, "Who are you talking to?" Suddenly, the door slams shut. When the door finally opens, she sees Anissa, smiling, with Aan in her lap. The scene transitions to the dinner table, where Pop notices Anissa looking visibly uncomfortable. It is revealed that her unease stems from an object on Pop's lap. Anissa tells Aan she's going to get some milk for him, but Rahayu interjects. Ignoring her, Anissa gets up, visibly distressed. As she leaves, a knock sounds at the door, and Rahayu goes to answer it. Meanwhile, using a camera robot, Pop observes Anissa's disturbing behavior in the kitchen. At the same time, Badri and Tama invite Rahayu and her family to an event. Shortly after, Pop confronts Marni, declaring, "I know everything," and commanding, "Leave Anissa's body." In response, Anissa turns and hits Pop's hand with a pan. She grabs a knife and lunges at Pop, attempting to stab her. Pop fights back, but Anissa manages to wound her hand. Hearing the commotion, Tama, Badri, and Rahayu rush to the scene. Anissa storms into the hall in a fit of rage and tries to attack Rahayu. Tama intervenes, but she turns on him, and a fierce fight ensues. Anissa leaps onto a table and hurls Tama away. She screams, causing the lights to flicker wildly. Suddenly, Anissa collapses. As Tama gets up, he is horrified to see Marni reveal her true form. She leaps onto the wall, while Pop takes Anissa away to safety. Marni launches an attack on Tama, igniting another intense battle. Tama grabs a knife and stabs her shoulder, but she twists his arm in retaliation. Despite the escalating fight, Tama manages to slash her foot, only to be horrified as it regenerates instantly. Marni grabs Tama by the hair and throws him onto a table, attempting to strangle him. At that moment, Pop reappears and places the protective object on Marni's forehead. Marni lets out a piercing scream and vanishes. The lights return to normal, and Pop hands the protective object to Tama. Later, Tama tells Rahayu that they need to keep Anissa restrained for now. He then asks Pop where she got the Caries. Pop explains, "The Caries has been passed down through generations in my family." Rahayu apologizes to Anissa, but suddenly, Anissa bites her hand. She says, "You don't deserve to be a mother." Turning to Badri, she accuses him. "Why didn't you help me?" She adds, "My business with your family isn't over yet." She then shifts her gaze to Tama and declares, "That includes you too, Tama," and spits on him. Tama urgently asks Pop to get the Caries. Pop places it on Anissa's forehead. Anissa pleads, crying out that she's herself again and that the Caries is hurting her. Overcome with emotion, Pop removes the Caries. The moment she does, Anissa starts laughing maniacally and breaks free from her restraints. Anissa leaps at Badri and bites his neck. Meanwhile, Rahayu takes Aan and leaves the room. Anissa then storms out, heading toward the room where Rahayu and Aan are hiding. Aan cries out, "Mommy, I want to be with you." Anissa begins banging her head against the door repeatedly, trying to break in. Just then, Irma arrives and starts throwing protective charms at Anissa. The confrontation escalates as Anissa attacks Irma and tries to strangle her. A fierce battle ensues. Anissa grabs Irma by the neck and drags her toward a window. Both of them crash through the window and fall outside. Then we see Aan crying, "I want to be with Mommy." Rahayu runs to him and says, "Yes, Mommy is here." Aan screams, "You are not my mom!" Crying, Rahayu tries to approach Aan again, but an unseen force pushes her back against the wall. She looks up and sees Marni taking Aan away while singing a lullaby. Rahayu shouts, "Give me my son back!" and rushes towards them, but Marni forcefully throws her back. Determined, Rahayu gets up again and pleads, I understand the pain you're going through, but I have struggled just as much to raise my children. Please don't separate me from him, she adds. I don't want to be as helpless as my mother was. Marni turns around, sets Aan down, and approaches Rahayu. In her human form, Marni helps Rahayu up and consoles her. She hugs Rahayu and says, "Your mother was not weak, but whatever she did was a form of mother's love." Suddenly, Marni thrusts her hand into Rahayu's stomach. Singing the lullaby, she pulls her hand back and throws Rahayu aside. Then we see Marni going back with Aan. A while later, Anissa regains consciousness and screams for Aan. Irma also wakes up, and together they witness Marni flying away with Aan. Anissa cries out in pain as Marni vanishes, leaving her devastated. Later, we see Anissa at her mother's grave. She promises to find Aan. And as they are leaving, Anissa notices a sacred grave. She asks the old man nearby, "Whose grave is this?" The old man replies, "Have you ever heard the story of Wewe Gombel in this village?" Anissa nods and says, "Yes." The man explains, "This is the grave of her son." Pop then reveals that when she accidentally touched Irma, she saw glimpses of her past. Pop explains, "I saw that when Irma was a child, she was kidnapped by Wewe Gombel and taken to the place where she hides stolen children." Anissa replies, "Irma and this sacred grave can be our first step to finding Aan." Pop reassures her, "I'm with you in this." Thomas steps forward, agreeing to help. He says, "There are still many things I need to learn about my family's connection to Marni." Anissa notices Irma sitting quietly in a corner and waves to her. Irma waves back with a blank expression. The scene then shifts to a group of children cycling through the jungle. They call out to one of their friends, Aldo, who is staring at the large tree. Suddenly, a demonic hand emerges from behind and grabs Aldo's shoulder. As he turns around, terror fills his eyes. The screen cuts to black, and the movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.